What do you think of them?
This is why it's so nice to not have makeup on.
That is so beautiful.
No,
They're ridiculous.
no,
She never stops whining.
no.
Meghan Markle Googled, is the race car an actual car?
Slay the dragon, save the princess. I'm like, that's my husband.
I love your Luke.
Sorry, what's that?
Your Luke. You look amazing. Your Luke.
My Luke, my
Luke. Look. She likes my Luke.
Your voice is driving me crazy and I'm about to jump over there and put my fists down your throat.
She's allegedly wearing no makeup. Meanwhile, she's got like the perfect blowout. Like she's completely camera ready. And she also is pretending like she's crying. There isn't a tear in sight. It's an actor's trick.
I've never seen someone that struggles to just give us like one strip of authenticity.
I think the woke have been asleep.
Oh my gosh, I work so hard.
You're complaining about your hard life and you're so privileged. It's just so weird.
It's ridiculous.
I'm searching for something to like about her, and it's so hard.
Well, if Meghan and Harry can quit their family, you can too.
No.
It was supposed to be her big comeback, a cozy cooking show, a fresh start, a new chapter far from the royal drama. But before it even had a chance to boil, Netflix pulled the plug. And what came next was anything but sweet.
Here's an email that I've been keeping for you.
I have full body chills right now.
This is why it's so nice to not have makeup on. Thank you. Yeah.
That is so beautiful.
No.
Meghan Markle's highly anticipated Netflix series just disappeared. No promo, no fanfare, not even an official statement. One day it was in development, the next it was gone, quietly canceled. And if you're wondering why, well, that's where things get messy. Because what started as a wholesome recipe for reinvention has now spiraled into accusations of fakery, over-branding, and turned a PR machine in overdrive.
Jamie Kern-Lima, who seems to be even more fake and insufferable than the Duchess.
Both of them did come across like they haven't actually, been in touch with maybe someone who's worried about the price of eggs.
Very first question, because I think in friendship it's so important. And I think so many people also have this question for you is, Meghan, how are you? And are you okay?
That's so kind.
Yes, it really is that awful. I may have blacked out from smacking myself in the head.
Was this show really canceled due to creative differences? Or did the streaming giant finally realize something the public's been saying for years? That maybe, just maybe, the authenticity Meghan keeps selling isn't exactly homemade. It was supposed to be Meghan Markle's big comeback. A stripped-down, no makeup, hard-on-her-sleeve interview that promised vulnerability, honesty, and a rare look at the woman behind the headlines. Instead, it became the internet's newest case study in performative authenticity.
Dan, when you do interviews on your show, do you do the Jamie Kern-Lima reactions? Yes. Oh my God, there's something wrong with her.
Podcast, hosted by her close friend Jamie Kern-Lima, a billionaire entrepreneur with Oprah-level aspirations, was marketed as raw and real. No filters, no pre-approved questions, just two women talking. But within minutes, something felt off. Meghan's perfectly tousled blowout, flawless complexion, and suspiciously well-lit camera angle made the no-makeup claim hard to believe. And then came the tears, or rather, the attempt at them. Critics were quick to point out that not a single tear actually rolled down her face. Online sleuths even pulled up old footage from her Suits promo days, where Meghan proudly joked about her ability to cry on command. One tap to the left eye and boom, emotional breakdown, made for TV. Viewers didn't buy it. The conversation, instead of feeling like a real moment, came across like a rehearsed monologue. Comments flooded social media with side-by-side comparisons of Meghan's breakdown and actual raw interviews from public figures like Adele or Selena Gomez, people whose emotional moments felt unfiltered. Meghan's, by contrast, looked too polished, too perfect, too strategic. And the host, Jamie Kern-Lima, spent most of the episode nodding like a bobblehead, showering Meghan with compliments so over the top it felt more like a pep rally than a podcast. At one point, she even called Meghan one of the most misunderstood, deeply authentic women in the world. For many listeners, that line alone was enough to click off. Even casual fans noticed the overproduction. Why does this feel like an infomercial for Meghan's brand? One user tweeted. Another said, she's crying for sympathy, but she's really selling something, and we all know it. And that's exactly what critics latched onto. Because buried beneath the emotional talk were repeated mentions of Meghan's lifestyle brand. As ever, her product launches, her family stories, her challenges. Every anecdote circled back to Meghan. Every tear, every smile, all of it felt like a soft launch of a PR campaign, not a soul-bearing confession. So instead of building empathy, the podcast did the opposite. It reminded everyone of why Meghan's public image struggles. She speaks the language of vulnerability, but somehow it never quite feels earned. And this time, the mask of authenticity didn't just slip, it shattered. weird. But that wasn't even the most cringeworthy part. The thing that really set people off was a tiny little note signed Her Royal Highness. 40 minutes into the episode, while Meghan was discussing homemade jam and carefully curated fruit baskets, a photo flashed across the screen. A small rustic gift set allegedly given to a friend. It included preserves, hand-poured sauce, and a card signed Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. Wait, what? That's right. Despite stepping down from royal duties in 2020, despite the public statements distancing herself and Harry from the monarchy, Meghan is still signing personal gifts with the full royal title, Her Royal Highness. Not Meghan, not the Sussexes, but a formal designation that she technically no longer has permission to use.
Kids, that's fun, so many good songs, and I've become that mom where I'm like sitting around with friends and I start singing like, Tyrannosaurus, that's the chorus, Tyrannosaurus. I was like, what am I singing? Oh my gosh, I'm singing Storybook. I'm singing Storybooks. I am not singing Beyonce in that.
40 minutes into the podcast, this little picture, quite a grainy picture, flashed up, which shows a basket of, homemade preserves with a card on it, HRH, Duchess of Sussex, Meghan.
You dropped off this gift basket with ice creams, homemade strawberry sauce to put on top of the ice cream.
I find it a little bit cringe to give a gift to a close friend and sign it Her Royal Highness.
Why even in private? She's using that full title, Her Royal Highness.
I would never refer to myself as Her Royal Highness.
They won't let me call myself Her Royal Highness anymore, but I'm going to put it all over my stationery and on the gifts that I give to my friends.
And this wasn't a media slip-up or fan speculation. This was shown intentionally on her own podcast, like it was just another normal Tuesday. To the average viewer, it felt like a clear message. Meghan isn't letting go of the crown, no matter what Buckingham Palace says. The backlash was instant. Royal watchers, media outlets, and even some of Meghan's former fans called it tone-deaf and disingenuous. Why use that title in a private gift? One commentator asked. Who are you trying to impress? Your friend or your followers? Another tweet summed up the sentiment perfectly. If you're still using HRH, you're not out of the royal game, you're just playing it from a different angle. And that's what it all comes down to, branding. Meghan's public persona has always walked a tightrope. She rejects the institution, but clings to the title. She distances herself from the royal family, but capitalizes on its legacy. And now, with every jar of jam and signed card, it's becoming increasingly clear that Her Royal Highness isn't just a title, it's a marketing tool. Because let's be honest, Meghan Markle, former actress, doesn't carry the same weight as Duchess of Sussex. And when you're trying to build a lifestyle empire, sign multi-million-dollar deals, and launch your own media platform, the crown, even if it's symbolic, still sells. But here's the irony. While Meghan leans into her royal branding, the royal family has reportedly done everything possible to strip that image away. According to insiders, Queen Elizabeth made it clear, you're either in or out. There's no halfway royalty. And yet, here we are, with podcast hosts calling Meghan royal, luxury brands chasing her endorsements, and fans buying into the image of a misunderstood princess in exile. But if you're still signing jam jars with HRH, are you really out? Or are you just trying to have the crown without the crown? And as we'll see in the next section, that blurred line between image and reality didn't just apply to titles. It extended straight into Meghan's personal brand and her failing attempt to become a modern-day Martha Stewart. When Meghan Markle announced her lifestyle brand as ever, it was pitched as a deeply personal project, a curated extension of her own home life. Think handmade preserves, artisan sauces, and allegedly wholesome products straight from the kitchen of the Duchess herself. But once the glossy branding wore off, what remained looked far less royal, and far more like a desperate attempt to cash in on celebrity. Within hours of launch, the brand boasted a complete sellout. Social media was flooded with staged images of curated kitchen tables, celebrity endorsements, and glowing praise. But here's the catch. Behind the scenes, there wasn't much product to begin with. Sources say the inventory was kept deliberately low to create artificial scarcity and a false sense of overwhelming demand. The strategy was clear. Make it look like a sensation, even if it wasn't. Customers quickly caught on. Complaints began surfacing on Reddit and Twitter. Orders not fulfilled, refunds delayed, radio silence from the brand. Some were still waiting for their packages a full month after launch. Others received the wrong items. One woman posted that she ordered Meghan's signature jam and got what looked like repackaged hotel mini jars instead. Critics didn't hold back. Influencers who had once supported Meghan began calling as ever cheaply made, overpriced, and completely out of touch. One scathing review labeled it Gwyneth Paltrow without the credibility. Others noted how Meghan's product line, yoga mats, pet bowls, candles, all seemed eerily generic, as if they'd been pulled straight from an Alibaba bulk order and slapped with a royal-sounding label. But it wasn't just about quality. It was the disconnect, the sense that Meghan, who once claimed to want a private life away from fame and fortune, was now repackaging that same story into something to monetize. And the biggest red flag? The trademarks. Documents revealed she'd quietly filed trademarks for dozens of lifestyle items under the AZever brand. Everything from stationery and kitchenware to dog toys and bath salts. To many, it wasn't an entrepreneurial pivot. It was a cash grab. And while there's nothing wrong with launching a business, critics say the issue lies in the marketing, selling it as wholesome and humble, when behind the curtain it's anything but. It felt fake, like another layer of a carefully constructed image that just didn't hold up under scrutiny. Because if you're going to call yourself authentic, the least you can do is deliver the product people actually paid for. But the collapse of AZever wasn't even Meghan's biggest flop. That title goes to her short-lived cooking show, a Netflix project so forgettable most people didn't even know it aired, before it vanished. Once upon a time, not too long ago, Meghan Markle had a Netflix show. Yes, really. A cooking-themed lifestyle project quietly announced as part of her and Harry's $100 million deal with the streaming giant. But blink, and you'd miss it, because just as quickly as it appeared, it disappeared. No marketing blitz, no premiere buzz, no social media campaign, just gone. So, what happened? Insiders say Netflix pulled the plug before the show could gain traction, or even finish production. Officially, it was called a creative realignment. Unofficially, it flopped hard. Sources close to the project claimed Meghan struggled with on-camera direction, insisted on controlling every detail, and didn't seem to have a clear concept for the show beyond let's make it feel royal. It reportedly lacked identity, cohesion, and, most importantly, audience interest. Clips that did leak online only made things worse. One viral moment showed Meghan struggling to zest a lemon. Another featured her confused about whether to broil or bake. This girl has never been in a kitchen in her life, one ex-staffer joked, and viewers agreed. The few who saw preview footage called it awkward, overly scripted, and again, too perfect to be real. The backlash was immediate. Cooking enthusiasts tore it apart. Lifestyle vloggers mocked the stiff delivery and lack of actual culinary skill. One reviewer said, "It feels like a Pinterest board wearing a tiara." But beyond the awkward zesters and curated countertops, what stung most was the missed opportunity. With her platform and influence, Meghan could have spotlighted real women, homegrown recipes, or cultural stories. Instead, the show, like so many of her projects, became just another vehicle to promote herself. And Netflix? They quietly moved on. Industry insiders say the platform is reevaluating its deal with Meghan and Harry after poor performance across several projects, including their docuseries Harry and Meghan, which drew criticism for being more emotional spectacle than documentary substance. Behind closed doors, executives allegedly referred to the cooking show as an expensive branding exercise with no audience. The bigger problem? This wasn't an isolated failure. It was another entry in a growing list of PR stumbles, overproduced launches, and underwhelming results. And when the cameras turn off and the spotlight fades, all that's left is the question, if Meghan isn't resonating with viewers, is it because she's misunderstood or because she's trying to sell something no one's buying? And if you thought the staged emotion stopped at jam jars and lemon zest, just wait, because Prince Harry's BBC interview made things even more awkward and a whole lot more personal. While Meghan's podcast tears were busy setting the internet on fire, Prince Harry decided it was his turn to take the spotlight, and things went downhill fast. In a high-profile BBC interview, Harry appeared somber, reflective, and clearly frustrated. He spoke about his ongoing legal battles with the UK government over personal security, claiming he was no longer safe in Britain. But the way he framed it, that's what truly lit the fuse. According to Harry, the responsibility for any harm that might come to him, Meghan, or their children lies squarely on one person's shoulders, King Charles. That's right, his own father. He said, and I quote, "If anything happens to me, my wife, or my father's grandchildren, look where the responsibility lies." To many, it sounded less like a safety concern and more like a veiled threat. One royal insider even described it as manipulation. And the timing? Awful. King Charles is currently battling a serious illness. While the palace has kept details private, multiple sources confirm he's undergoing aggressive treatment. So for Harry to go on record, implying his father would be to blame if anything tragic happened, while the man is fighting for his life, was seen as shockingly tone-deaf. Critics came in swinging. British tabloids labeled the interview a royal pity party. Social media wasn't any kinder. "He's turning his dad's cancer into a PR weapon," one user posted. Another wrote, "Harry's not protecting his family. He's torching the last shred of goodwill they had." And perhaps most dangerous of all? According to the Mirror, sources close to the royal household say King Charles now doesn't trust Harry at all. Every private conversation is treated like a potential Netflix episode. Every phone call might become a headline. The emotional fallout isn't limited to father and son. Many believe this latest round of interviews is widening the royal rift beyond repair. Some insiders even claim that Harry's behavior and Meghan's constant victim narrative played a role in Queen Elizabeth's declining health in her final years. Whether that's true or not, the mere fact that people are saying it shows just how far public opinion has turned. Because sympathy only goes so far, especially when it starts to feel like a strategy. But if Meghan and Harry's interviews were emotional performances, it was Meghan's authenticity that critics say was the most rehearsed of all. Meghan Markle's public image hinges on one word: authenticity. The idea that that she's raw, vulnerable, and emotionally open. But lately, that word has become her biggest liability because more and more people are convinced it's all an act. It started with a No Makeup podcast appearance. She claimed to be barefaced and casual, but viewers were quick to notice the flawless complexion, the professionally done hair, and the perfectly curated lighting. Then came the tears, or more accurately, the attempt at them. There was emotion in her voice, sure, but not a single tear actually rolled down. And suddenly people started remembering something, an old interview from her Suits days, where Meghan laughed about her ability to cry on cue. "Left eye, go!" That was her exact phrase. She even demonstrated it, smiling proudly as a tear slid down her cheek on command. And in that moment, the spell broke, because now, every time Meghan got emotional, it felt like acting, not sharing. Even respected journalists began to raise eyebrows. One Daily Mail columnist called her tears a transparent attempt to stay relevant. Another joked, even her tears have a PR team. But the skepticism didn't end with Meghan's facial expressions. It extended to the way everything she talked about somehow circled back to her brand. Whether it was her children, her marriage, or her supposedly difficult days, every anecdote felt like a setup for self-promotion. Take the podcast, for example. She goes on a 5-minute tangent about how stressful her days are. Writing captions, overseeing social media, reviewing SKUs, managing product launches. Sounds intense, until you remember she has full-time staff for all of that. Personal assistants, brand managers, nannies, PR reps, and still, we're expected to believe she's overwhelmed. Critics weren't buying it. One viral comment summed it up perfectly. This isn't what being relatable looks like. It's what pretending to be relatable looks like. Even her talk about motherhood raised red flags. Meghan proudly claimed she writes emails to her toddlers every single night. Not lullabies, emails. For toddlers, it sounded more like a scripted Hallmark moment than anything a real parent would say. And here's the problem. When you cry wolf, or in this case, cry on cue, people stop listening. Her stories of struggle, sacrifice, and sincerity no longer inspire empathy. They invite scrutiny, because when everything sounds like branding, it's hard to tell what's real anymore. But Meghan isn't just surrounded by critics, she's surrounded by cheerleaders. And in the next section, we'll explore why her inner circle might be doing more harm than good, especially when praise turns into blind loyalty. If Meghan Markle's recent podcast proved anything, it's this: the people surrounding her aren't offering support. They're offering protection, not from the media, not from scrutiny, but from reality. Jamie Kern-Lima, the podcast host, is a billionaire entrepreneur, former reality TV star, and self-styled motivational guru. She's also one of Meghan's close friends. And if the episode was any indication, she's more of a publicist than a podcaster. From the moment Meghan sat down, Jamie gushed like a teenage fangirl at a backstage meet and greet. "You look amazing," she repeated. "I'm so honored." It wasn't a conversation. It was a coronation. Not a single tough question. Not a single pushback. Just an hour of echo chamber affirmations, carefully worded compliments, and softballs lobbed with the precision of someone deeply invested in preserving Meghan's image, not challenging it. Even casual listeners noticed. One viral TikTok stitched together a montage of Jamie's over-the-top reactions, complete with gasps, wide eyes, and oh my gosh moments every time Meghan said something basic. It didn't feel like authenticity. It felt like fan fiction, and that's the problem. Because when you're surrounded by yes men, your truth gets distorted. When everyone in your circle is praising you, agreeing with you, feeding your image, you stop evolving. You stop hearing criticism, even the constructive kind. Multiple outlets, from The Independent to Page 6, commented on how eerily scripted the whole thing felt. One journalist wrote, "This wasn't a podcast, it was a love letter to Meghan from Meghan via a very willing co-author." And it's not just Jamie. Insiders say Meghan has built a tight inner circle of influencers, brand managers, and lifestyle gurus, all loyal, all invested, all unwilling to say the one thing that might actually help her image. You're overplaying it, because if you're trying to prove you're misunderstood, you need contrast, you need friction. Without that, it just looks like you're creating a carefully curated version of yourself and refusing to let anyone challenge it. And when even your closest allies are acting like press agents, you have to ask, is anyone around you telling the truth? Or is everyone too busy protecting the brand? At this point, it's hard to ignore the pattern. Every podcast, every interview, every project, it all leads back to one thing: the brand. From tearful breakdowns to cooking shows that don't cook, from jam jars to emotional monologues, Meghan and Harry have turned personal storytelling into professional currency, and the public is starting to notice. Once viewed as rebels breaking free from a stuffy monarchy, they're now increasingly seen as something else entirely: marketers. Storytelling isn't being used to inspire, it's being used to sell. The tears aren't signals of healing, they're brand strategy. The drama isn't accidental, it's part of the pitch. The media has picked up on it. Royal commentators, journalists, even former fans are connecting the dots. Every time Meghan shares a raw moment, there's a product launch or media deal lurking nearby. Every time Harry delivers a vulnerable speech, it's followed followed by a Netflix special or podcast drop. Even their defenders are starting to fall silent. There's only so many times you can say they just want privacy when they're doing back-to-back interviews about how much they don't want attention. And maybe that's the saddest part, that something as powerful as vulnerability, as needed as honesty, has been commercialized to the point where no one believes it anymore. Not because the emotion isn't real, but because the delivery is too perfect, too polished, too packaged. Critics say they're exaggerating their struggles for sympathy, that they're manufacturing controversy to stay relevant, that they're not trying to escape fame, they're just trying to control it. And when you try to control the narrative too tightly, people push back. Because at the end of the day, no one wants to feel manipulated. They want to feel something real. So the question isn't just, what are Meghan and Harry doing wrong? It's, do they even know how to be anything other than the brand anymore? Meghan Markle came into the spotlight as an outsider, a fresh voice in a centuries-old institution. She had the power to disrupt, to inspire, to transform the narrative around the monarchy and modern fame. And for a brief moment, she did. But somewhere along the way, the mission got muddled. The story became a strategy. The emotion became a headline. And the truth? Well, that became optional. Now, every move feels calculated. Every interview feels rehearsed. And every product, every tear, every candid moment feels like it was designed not for honesty, but for impact. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not that Meghan and Harry are flawed, not that they've stumbled, but that they've become so consumed with managing perception, they've forgotten what it's like to just be. In a world obsessed with content, they've become the content. But if everything is curated, if everything is scripted, then the question isn't, why don't people believe them? It's, is there anything left to believe? Because when the camera's off and the deals are done and the spotlight fades, who is Meghan Markle without the brand? And maybe the scarier question, does she even know?